while my husband Nate splurges on a $90,000 Cartier bracelet for his girlfriend. I'm finalizing papers that will cut off his access to the Mitchell family trust fund he thinks I know nothing about. As he plans their romantic getaway to Cape Cod, using our joint savings, I'm orchestrating the biggest wake-up call of his privileged life. He has no idea that his supposedly naive trophy wife has been the silent trustee of his family's fortune for the past 4 years. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My hand remains steady as I sign another document, a quiet smile playing at my lips. Through the window of Dr. Wright's corner office, I can see the luxury jewelry store on Newbury Street where my husband Nate is currently shopping for his mistress Vanessa. The irony isn't lost on me. The same store where he bought my engagement ring 7 years ago. The same store that just texted me a receipt confirmation for a $90,000 purchase on our joint credit card. Mrs. Mitchell, are you absolutely certain about the timing? Samantha, my lawyer, watches me with a mixture of admiration and concern. Her reading glasses catch the afternoon light as she organizes another stack of documents. I turn my phone toward her, showing Nate's latest Instagram story. The timestamp reads 3 minutes ago. Life is about creating moments that take your breath away. Blessed, living my best life. The photo shows a champagne flute at the jewelry store's VIP lounge, his father's vintage Rolex visible in the frame, the one I helped restore for his 35th birthday last year. The timing, I say, signing another paper with flourish, is perfect. My phone buzzes with a text from Nate. Working late tonight, sweetheart. Big client meeting. Don't wait up. Love you. I've saved every message like this from the past 6 months. Each one corresponds perfectly with a credit card charge at high-end restaurants, luxury hotels, or designer boutiques, the ones he doesn't know I've traced. The ones that match exactly with Vanessa's suspiciously expensive Instagram posts, each tagged with subtle hints about her generous mystery man. What they don't know is that I've known for months. Every business dinner, every client emergency, every suspicious withdrawal from our joint savings account, I've documented it all. But unlike most betrayed wives, I didn't confront him. I didn't throw his designer clothes onto the front lawn or key his precious Tesla. Instead, I did what I do best. I followed the money. This one, Samantha points to a particular document, will initiate the trust fund audit once you sign. After this, there's no going back. I think about this morning, how Nate kissed my cheek before leaving for work, how he promised we'd plan that trip to Cape Cod soon. Meanwhile, I'd already seen the Cape Cod reservations he'd made, not for us, but for him and Vanessa next month, paid for with our savings. Good, I say, my signature flowing across the paper. That's exactly what I want. My phone lights up with another notification, an Instagram story from Vanessa showing off a distinctive Cartier box captioned, "When he knows exactly what you deserve." I screenshot it, noting the time and date. It matches perfectly with the purchase notification from our joint account, the one Nate thinks I never check. The forensic team will begin their investigation Monday morning, Samantha explains, organizing the papers. Given what you've already uncovered about the trust fund manipulations, they'll find twice as much as we already know. I finish for her, pulling up a folder on my phone. Here's every transaction he's tried to hide through that fake investment company he set up. The one where Vanessa mysteriously became a financial advisor 2 months ago despite her only experience being as a part-time yoga instructor. Samantha's eyes widen as she scrolls through the documents. This is incredibly thorough. I had a lot of free evenings, I say dryly. You know, with all his client meetings. As if on cue, my phone buzzes with a group chat notification. Our friends planning a weekend barbecue in Brookline. Nate responds immediately. Sorry everyone, have to skip. Flying to Chicago for business. I have to suppress a laugh. I know about that business trip too. I've seen the hotel reservation in Cape Cod. First-class tickets for 2 charged to our joint credit card. Last one, Samantha says, sliding the final paper across the desk. This initiates the full trust fund investigation. Once you sign this, I don't hesitate. My signature flows across the paper. Years of anger and betrayal channeled into each curve and line. Another notification pops up. Nate going live on Instagram from what's supposed to be his client meeting. The jewelry store's distinctive decor visible in the background. Let them celebrate, I say, standing up and smoothing my dress, the one Nate bought me last month out of guilt. By Monday morning, they'll have a very different story to share. Samantha gathers the papers, her expression both impressed and slightly unnerved. You know, in 12 years of handling trust fund disputes, I've never seen anyone quite as strategic, I suggest, picking up my bag. Or maybe just tired of being underestimated. As I walk out of the office, my phone buzzes one last time. Nate sending his nightly check-in. Miss you, beautiful. Can't wait to come home to you. I smile, typing back. Sleep well, darling. Monday's going to be interesting. He'll think, it's just another loving message from his unsuspecting wife. But then again, he always did underestimate me. That's about to become his most expensive mistake. Little does he know, while he's been playing his games, I've been playing a much longer. 4 years ago, when his father had a health scare, I was the one who helped reorganize the family's estate planning. Nate was too busy with his networking events to attend the meetings. He never bothered to read the updated trust documents, the ones that made me, his trophy wife, the primary trustee of the Mitchell family fortune. Monday morning can't come soon enough. The morning after signing those initial papers, I dress with meticulous care. Hermes silk blouse, tailored Brunello Cucinelli suit, and the Van Cleef & Arpels necklace Nate's mother gave me last Christmas. The mirror reflects exactly what Nate expects to see. His perfectly polished wife, the former art history major he loves to introduce as his beautiful but financially clueless partner at family gatherings. If he only knew I spent 4 years managing acquisitions at Wellington Management before we met. Good morning, darling, I call out as he stumbles into our marble kitchen, clearly hungover from last night's client meeting. The coffee machine hums quietly, filling our $3 million Beacon Hill brownstone with the aroma of his favorite Brazilian roast. I made your breakfast. He kisses my cheek, reeking of expensive cologne and guilt, the same cologne I noticed on Vanessa's latest Instagram post from their accidental run-in at Saks yesterday. You're too good to me, babe. If only you knew, I think, sliding his coffee across our Calicut marble counter. The same counter where I'd sat until 3 a.m. last night on a secure video call with Olivia, my old colleague from Wellington. Olivia, who now heads their private wealth management division. Olivia, who nearly spat out her whiskey when I showed her what I'd found in Nate's private trust fund transactions. Another early meeting? I ask innocently, watching him check his phone. His lock screen is still our vacation photo from Positano last summer. But I know his background is Vanessa. I've seen it reflected in his car window when he texts her during our dinner dates. Yeah, the Richardson portfolio is killing me. He runs a hand through his perfectly styled hair, distracted. The Richardson portfolio that doesn't exist. I've already confirmed the Richardsons moved their wealth management to Morgan Stanley 6 months ago. Don't work too hard, I say, squeezing his shoulder. He doesn't notice me taking a photo of his phone screen in the reflection of our Viking Range's chrome surface, capturing Vanessa's message about their lunch plans at the new seafood restaurant on Newbury Street. After he leaves, I transform our home office into my command center. The framed photos of our wedding at the Plaza Hotel disappear into drawers, replaced by printouts of bank statements, trust fund documents, and property records. My friend Olivia sits cross-legged on my custom restoration hardware carpet, surrounded by papers. Jesus Christ, she mutters, holding up a document. Did he really think he could hide these trust fund withdrawals behind a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands? I laugh, but there's no humor in it. He registered it under his childhood golden retriever's name, the one that died 10 years ago. Olivia shakes her head, adding the paper to our growing evidence pile. Men like him always think they're the smartest person in the room. That's because they never bother looking around, I reply, pulling up another document on my laptop. Look at this. Every time he meets Vanessa, he files it as a trust fund management expense. 5-star hotels with a woman who's supposedly advising him on legacy wealth planning, despite not knowing the difference between a bond and a bank account. My phone buzzes, a group text from our friend Madison about her upcoming charity, Gala at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. Nate responds immediately with another excuse. Vanessa, I notice, has already marked herself unavailable on the events planning committee list. They're getting careless, I observe, adding another screenshot to my collection. Confident. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Have you talked to Judge Morrison yet? Olivia asks, referring to our friend who oversees trust fund disputes in the Suffolk County Court. I nod, pulling up an encrypted email chain. She's ready. The moment we file on Monday, she'll randomly schedule an emergency hearing about suspicious trust fund activities. The same hearing that will reveal Vanessa's company has been receiving trust fund payments for consulting since before she even met Nate. My phone lights up with Nate's face, his daily check-in call. I answer with practiced cheerfulness, listening to him lie about his lunch meeting while I stare at their restaurant reservation confirmation in my email. The same email account he set up for me, thinking I'd only use it for online shopping. Miss you too, honey. Don't forget we have dinner with your parents tonight. He pauses, and I can practically hear him texting Vanessa to reschedule. Of course, babe. Wouldn't miss it. After hanging up, I turn to Olivia. He'll cancel in about 3 hours. Emergency trust fund meeting. How can you be so sure? I pull up Vanessa's Instagram story from this morning. A cryptic post about a special sunset surprise at the new rooftop bar at the Boston Harbor Hotel. Because I know their routine better than they do. The rest of the day unfolds like a carefully choreographed ballet. I attend my regular board meetings at the Arts Foundations where I serve as a trustee, make appearances at my usual lunch spots, even get my nails done at the salon where Nate's sister goes. Everything normal, everything routine. No one would suspect that in my Bottega Veneta briefcase, I'm carrying documents that will dismantle a decade of Nate's careful deceptions. Right on schedule, at 4:47 p.m., Nate texts, "Baby, I'm so sorry. Might have to rain check dinner with my parents. Emergency meeting with the trust fund advisors." I respond with just the right amount of disappointment and understanding, watching through my phone's banking alerts as he makes a dinner reservation at Mara, his and Vanessa's favorite spot for their business strategy sessions. The trust fund advisors haven't scheduled any meetings. I would know. I'm the one who approves their calendar. Look what just came in, Olivia says, holding up her phone. Vanessa's posted a photo of champagne glasses at sunset. The Boston Harbor Hotel's distinctive waterfront view unmistakable in the background. Perfect, I say, adding the screenshot to our collection. That receipt will match beautifully with the emergency business dinner he's about to charge to the trust fund account. As evening falls, I sit in our meticulously decorated living room, surrounded by evidence of Nate's double life and my own careful documentation. Every lie, every secret meeting, every hidden trust fund withdrawal, all of it meticulously cataloged and cross-referenced. My phone buzzes with another Instagram notification. Vanessa wearing a new Versace dress that costs more than her supposed monthly consulting fee, captioned with a single diamond emoji. I save it to the folder marked Monday and pour myself a glass of Chateau Lafite from the collection Nate thinks only he has access to in our wine cellar. Let them have their romantic evening, I murmur, scanning through the latest trust fund report Olivia sent over. Let them think they're the clever ones, playing their little game of hide-and-seek with the naive wife. I've spent months building this facade of ignorance, and in less than 12 hours, I'll have the pleasure of watching it shatter, along with everything else they thought they could take from me. The forensic accountants finished their preliminary review. Olivia calls from the office, her voice tight with disbelief. You're not going to believe what they found in the offshore accounts. I join her, my heels clicking against our Italian marble floors. On her laptop screen, a complex web of transactions unfolds, a masterpiece of financial deceit that would be almost impressive if it wasn't so staggeringly stupid. He's been transferring trust fund money through 3 different shell companies, Olivia explains, highlighting various transactions, all registered under variations of his dog's name, then funneling it through Vanessa's fake consulting firm and into private accounts in the Cayman Islands. I lean closer, a cold smile playing at my lips. Show me the dates of the first transfers. Olivia pulls up a timeline and my smile widens. Just as I thought. He started moving money the day after his father made me trustee. He never even bothered to check who had final approval power. My phone chimes with a message from Nate's mother, Eleanor Mitchell. Darling, are you and Nate still coming for dinner? I've had Cook prepare his favorite souffle. Poor Diana Mitchell, still believing her son is the same responsible young man who followed his father's footsteps into wealth management. Wait until she discovers how her precious boy has been treating her family's 7-generation fortune. What about the trust fund bylaws? Olivia asks, pulling up another document. Article 7, Section 3, I quote from memory. Any trustee or beneficiary found to be engaging in actions that endanger or diminish the family's financial legacy can be immediately suspended from access pending full investigation. Olivia's eyes gleam. And with Vanessa's social media trail, every post, every photo, every location check-in, all matching perfectly with trust fund withdrawals and consulting payments, I confirm, pulling up a carefully curated folder on my laptop. They've documented their own misconduct better than we ever could. My phone lights up with another check-in from Nate. Just wrapped the emergency meeting, baby. Might be a late one. So much paperwork to review. I text back, don't work too hard, darling. Make sure you eat something. Through the window, I can see the lights of the Boston Harbor Hotel, knowing they're up there right now, celebrating what they think is their perfect deception. Nate probably congratulating himself on how skillfully he's managed to hide his withdrawals from the trust fund, Vanessa no doubt already planning how to spend more of the Mitchell family money. Samantha just confirmed, Olivia says, checking her phone. Judge Morrison has cleared her morning calendar. The moment we file, she'll expedite the hearing. I nod, walking to our floor-to-ceiling windows. The Boston skyline sparkles back at me, a constellation of lights that seems to mirror the intricate web of evidence we've woven. Lauren, Olivia's voice turns serious. Are you absolutely sure about the timing? We could wait until after his birthday party next week. His whole family will be there. I turn back to her, thinking of the invitation I'd helped Eleanor design, the lavish celebration planned at the plaza, where Nate intends to announce his new role as primary manager of the family's investments. The same party where he and Vanessa plan to accidentally meet, beginning their public story with a meet cute his mother would approve of. The timing, I say, picking up another stack of documents, is exactly right. Let him stand in front of his entire family, ready to make his big announcement. Let him feel that moment of triumph. Olivia raises an eyebrow. Right before Judge Morrison's bailiff serves him with the trust fund suspension papers. Poetic, isn't it? My phone buzzes again. A text from Vanessa to our charity committee group. So sorry to miss tomorrow's meeting, everyone. Last-minute client emergency. The same meeting where we're supposed to discuss the annual Mitchell Family Foundation Gala. I add the screenshot to our evidence file, then pull up the trust fund's latest statement. The numbers that Nate thinks only he understands glow on the screen. If he'd ever bothered to really look, he'd have noticed that every transaction, every transfer, every withdrawal has required dual authentication for the past 4 years. One code from him, one from the trustee, me. I've watched every dollar he's tried to hide, every account he's attempted to obscure, every lie he's built his house of cards upon, all while playing the role he assigned me, the beautiful, naive wife who couldn't possibly understand the complexities of wealth management. His father's office just confirmed. Olivia checks another message. Board meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. Monday. Nate is supposed to present the new family investment strategy. I smile, remembering the fabricated reports he's been working on, the fake projections he's created to hide his mismanagement of the trust. Perfect. That gives Judge Morrison's team plenty of time to arrive by 9:30. My phone lights up one final time for the night. Nate sending a photo of paperwork scattered across his office desk. Actually, the Boston Harbor Hotel's distinctive stationery visible in the corner. Still grinding, baby. Don't wait up. I text back a single heart emoji, then turn to Olivia. Shall we finish preparing his wake-up call? For the next few hours, we meticulously review every document, every piece of evidence, every single detail of what's about to unfold. By the time Olivia leaves, the sun is starting to rise over Boston Common, painting our living room in shades of gold that match the embossed letterhead of the Mitchell Family Trust. I hear Nate's key in the door around 6 a.m. He tries to be quiet, but his designer shoes still click against the marble floors. I'm already in the kitchen, perfectly dressed, makeup flawless, starting the coffee maker. "You're up early," he says, trying to hide his surprise and the faint trace of Vanessa's signature Joe Malone perfume on his collar. "Thought you could use some breakfast after your late night," I smile, sliding him a cup of coffee. "Must have been some important trust fund business." "You know how it is," he waves vaguely, not meeting my eyes. "Sometimes these things can't wait." "Oh, darling," I think, watching him check his phone under the table, no doubt messaging Vanessa about their close call. "You have no idea how right you are. Just a few more hours until Monday morning, when they learn exactly what happens when you mistake silence for ignorance and underestimate the woman you thought you'd fooled." Monday morning dawns clear and crisp, the kind of autumn Boston day that usually has tourists flooding the Freedom Trail. I wake up at precisely 6:30 a.m., though I've barely slept. Nate's side of our fret-lined bed is empty. He'd left early, eager to prepare for his big presentation to the family board. If he only knew what else was being prepared for him. I dress with surgical precision, a Chanel suit in charcoal gray, his mother's favorite Louboutin heels, a guilt gift from Nate after a particularly expensive weekend with Vanessa, and his grandmother's pearls, a symbol of the family trust he's about to lose. Every detail matters today. Every piece tells a story. "Morning, beautiful." Nate's voice is unusually chipper when he calls at 7:45 a.m. "Just wanted to check you're coming to the board meeting, right? Thought you might want to see your husband's big moment." "Wouldn't miss it for the world, darling," I reply, watching Samantha send confirmation that Judge Morrison has arrived at her chambers. "Someone should be there to witness everything you deserve." He chuckles, missing my tone. "Completely. That's my girl. See you at 9. I end the call and pull up the security feed from the Mitchell Group's offices. Amazing what being a trustee grants you access to. Nate is already there, practicing his presentation in the boardroom mirror, adjusting his Hermes tie with nervous fingers. On another screen, I watch Vanessa enter her favorite coffee shop, no doubt planning to celebrate with Nate after his triumph. "Everything's in position," Olivia texts. She's already at the courthouse with Samantha, waiting for the perfect moment. Judge Morrison is reviewing the final documents now. I check my watch, 8:15 a.m., time to set the wheels in motion. My first stop is the Mitchell Group's private bank, where I've been a familiar face since helping reorganize their family estate 4 years ago. Nate never bothered to attend these meetings. Boring paperwork, he'd called it. His loss. Mrs. Mitchell, Thomas, the private banking director, greets me warmly. Everything is prepared as requested. I smile, taking a seat in his plush office. And the timing? He slides a document across his mahogany desk. The moment you send the signal, every account Nate has access to will be flagged for review. The trust fund auditors are standing by. Perfect. I sign where indicated, my Mont Blanc pen, another of Nate's guilt gifts, flowing smoothly across the paper. And his private accounts, the ones he thought were hidden? Thomas allows himself a small smile. Already under surveillance, the moment the trust fund suspension hits, those freeze too. My phone buzzes, a message from Eleanor Mitchell. Darling, I'm so proud of Nate today, and so grateful to have you as part of our family. You've been such a blessing. If she only knew how much of a blessing I was about to be, saving her. Family's fortune from her own son's greed. At 8:45 a.m., I enter the Mitchell Group's gleaming office tower, nodding to security guards who know me as the trustee's wife, not realizing I'm actually their superior. The elevator rides smoothly to the 50th floor, where the family's legacy has been managed for 3 generations. Nate is waiting by the boardroom, practically bouncing with nervous energy. You made it! He kisses my cheek, and I catch a whiff of Vanessa's perfume still lingering on his collar. I've got such a good feeling about today. Oh, darling, I murmur, straightening his tie. You have no idea how memorable today is going to be. The boardroom fills quickly with family members and executives. Nate's father, George Mitchell, takes his place at the head of the table, looking every bit the family patriarch in his bespoke suit. If only his son had inherited his integrity along with his features. Before we begin, George announces, I want to thank everyone for being here for this momentous occasion. As you know, we're here to discuss the future of the Mitchell family. Trust, and my son Nate has prepared a comprehensive presentation on our new investment strategy. Nate stands, straightening his papers with practiced confidence. His PowerPoint presentation glows on the screen behind him, slides full of fake projections and manipulated numbers that took him weeks to fabricate. Good morning, everyone, he begins, flashing his 1,000-watt smile. Today marks a new chapter. In the Mitchell legacy. 8:59 a.m. My phone vibrates silently in my lap. Olivia's message is simple. Ready. 9 Salar a.m. Nate clicks to his first slide, pointing out fabricated growth projections with practiced charm. As you can see, our trust fund's performance under my guidance has been exceptional. 9:01 a.m. I send a single text. Now. The effect is immediate but subtle at first. Nate's phone buzzes in his pocket, probably a notification from his banking app. He ignores it, continuing his presentation. It buzzes again, and again, and again. 9:03 a.m. The boardroom door opens silently. Judge Morrison's bailiff enters, nodding to me imperceptibly. Behind him, 2 federal auditors take their places by the door. And if you'll look at these returns, Nate continues, though his phone is now buzzing constantly, he's starting to look distracted, shifting uncomfortably. You'll see that our innovative approach to... His voice trails off as he notices his father checking his own phone, frowning deeply. Other board members are doing the same, their expression shifting from polite attention to confused concern. 9:05 a.m. The bailiff steps forward, official documents in hand. Mr. Nathan Mitchell? Nate turns, annoyed at the interruption of his big moment. I'm in the middle of something here. You are hereby served with an emergency injunction regarding the Mitchell Family Trust, the bailiff announces clearly, his voice carrying to every corner of the suddenly silent boardroom. By order of Judge Morrison, You are suspended from all access to trust fund accounts and assets pending investigation into serious allegations of misappropriation and fraud. The color drains from Nate's face as he takes the papers with trembling hands. His phone is still buzzing, probably notifications of his accounts being frozen one by one. There must be some mistake, he stammers, looking around the room desperately. His eyes land on me, seeking support, reassurance, the naive trust he's come to expect. Instead, he finds me calmly opening my laptop, pulling up the folders marked evidence. "No mistake, darling," I say softly, turning the screen so the entire board can see. "Would you like to explain these transactions to your family yourself, or shall I?" The first image appears on the boardroom's main screen, replacing his fabricated presentation, a detailed spreadsheet of every dollar he's stolen, every lie he's told, every trust he's broken. Behind him, George Mitchell stands slowly, his face a mask of shock and growing fury. "Nate?" His father's voice is deadly quiet. "What is this?" Before he can answer, his phone buzzes one final time. He looks at it reflexively, and I know exactly what he's seeing: a notification that his access to all Mitchell family accounts has been suspended. "Perhaps," I suggest, standing smoothly, "we should discuss the real state of the family trust, starting with these unusual payments to a certain consulting firm." Nate slumps into his chair as I take control of the presentation remote. Behind him, the federal auditors begin setting up their equipment. Through the boardroom's glass walls, I can see Samantha and Olivia arriving with boxes of additional evidence. The day of reckoning has only just begun. "Let's start with this particular transaction," I say, clicking to the next slide. The boardroom screen fills with a detailed breakdown of a $250,000 transfer from the trust fund to Vanessa's consulting firm made on March 15th, exactly one day after Vanessa's company was registered. Interesting timing, wouldn't you say? Nate's hands grip the armrests of his chair, knuckles white. Behind him, George Mitchell has switched from shock to cold fury, his jaw clenched as he watches his son's deceptions laid bare. "Of course," I continue, clicking through to the next slide. "That was just the beginning. Shall we discuss the offshore accounts registered under your childhood pet's name? Or perhaps the series of business development charges at the Boston Harbor Hotel that coincidentally match perfectly with these Instagram posts?" The screen fills with a carefully curated collection. Vanessa's social media posts side by side with trust fund expenditures, times and dates perfectly aligned. Each champagne toast, each surprise gift, each luxury weekend mathematically matched. With a suspicious withdrawal. "This is ridiculous," Nate finally manages, his voice cracking. "These are legitimate business expenses. Dad, I can explain." "Explain what, exactly?" I interrupt smoothly, pulling up another document. "How you started embezzling from the trust fund the day after your father made me trustee? Or should we discuss how you've been using family money to fund your affair while planning to divorce me?" A gasp ripples through the boardroom. Eleanor Mitchell, Nate's mother, presses a hand to her chest, her face pale beneath her perfect makeup. "Divorce?" she whispers. "Nate, what is she talking about?" "Oh, you didn't know?" I turn to my mother-in-law with practiced sympathy. "Nate and his financial consultant have quite the future planned, booked with trust fund money, of course. Would you like to see the Cape Cod reservations, the engagement ring receipt, or perhaps the draft divorce papers his lawyer drew up last week?" Nate lunges for his phone, probably to warn Vanessa, but it's already too late. Through the boardroom's glass walls, we can see her being escorted into the building by federal agents, her designer handbag clutched to her chest like a shield. "Perfect timing," I murmur, checking my watch. The FBI does run quite punctually. "The FBI?" Nate's voice rises an octave. "What are you... Did you really think?" I cut in, my voice carrying clearly across the stunned boardroom. That you could embezzle millions from a family trust fund without consequences. That no one would notice your creative accounting? Your father made me trustee for a reason, darling. And unlike you, I actually read the financial reports. The federal auditors have set up their equipment now, efficiently downloading data from the company servers. Samantha stands at the ready with another stack of documents, the complete forensic accounting of every dollar Nate has stolen. Mrs. Mitchell, one of the auditors calls out, "We've confirmed the initial findings. The pattern of misappropriation is consistent with your report." Nate's head snaps up. "Your report? Who do you think has been documenting your theft all these months?" I ask quietly. "Who do you think has been tracking every lie, every secret meeting, every hidden transaction? The wife you thought was too naive to understand finance? The trophy you believed would never question your business meetings?" His phone buzzes again, probably Vanessa being brought to the conference room for questioning. Through the glass, I can see her mascara-streaked face as she realizes the magnitude of their situation. "I can fix this." Nate stands abruptly, desperation creeping into his voice. "Dad, just let me explain. We can handle this internally." "Sit down." George Mitchell's voice could freeze hell itself. "You've done quite enough." "Actually," I interject, pulling up another document, "we're just getting started. Would anyone like to see the trust fund's true performance reports? The ones Nate has been hiding while presenting his creative fiction?" The next hour unfolds like a perfectly choreographed dance. With each new revelation, each piece of evidence, each damning document, Nate shrinks further into his chair, his carefully constructed world of lies crumbling slide by slide, dollar by dollar. "The Cayman Islands accounts have been frozen," Olivia announces from the doorway, "and Judge Morrison has approved the emergency audit of all personal assets." Nate's head snaps up. "Personal assets? You can't—" Article 7, Section 3 of the Trust Fund Bylaws. I quote smoothly. "Any trustee or beneficiary found to be engaging in actions that endanger or diminish the family's financial legacy can be immediately suspended from access to all related assets pending full investigation. Your father insisted I memorize every clause when he made me trustee. Shame you never bothered to read them yourself." A commotion outside draws everyone's attention. Vanessa is being led to a separate room, her face a mask of panic as she realizes the serious nature of her situation. Through the glass, I watch her reach for her phone, probably to call the lawyer she thinks can save her. "Don't bother," I call out, loud enough for her to hear through the glass. "Your lawyer dropped you 20 minutes ago. Apparently, he has some concerns about being associated with trust fund fraud." Nate stands again, this time moving toward the door, but the federal agents shift smoothly to block his path. "This is insane. You can't just—" "Can't what?" I ask, my voice deadly quiet. "Protect the family's legacy from your greed? Prevent you from stealing more of your parents' trust fund? Or perhaps you're upset that I won't let you drain the accounts to fund your new life with Vanessa?" I click to the next slide and Nate actually flinches. It's a photo from last week. Him and Vanessa at Tiffany's, shopping for engagement rings, the trust fund withdrawal for the purchase still pending in the system. Engagement rings? Eleanor Mitchell's voice is barely a whisper. "While you're still married to Rebecca?" "Speaking of marriage," I continue, pulling up another document. "Nate, darling, why don't you explain to everyone why you've been meeting with divorce attorneys? Or should I share the prenup dissolution papers you had drafted?" The boardroom is deadly silent now, every eye fixed on Nate as he realizes just how completely his plans have imploded. His father stands slowly, every inch the powerful patriarch whose legacy his son has betrayed. "Get him out of my sight," George orders, his voice trembling with rage, "and call the family lawyers, all of them." As security begins to escort Nate from the boardroom, his phone buzzes one final time. I know exactly what notification he's receiving. His access to the Mitchell family offices has been revoked, his keycard deactivated, his credentials suspended. "One more thing," I call out, just as he reaches the door. "You might want to pack a bag when you get home. The brownstone belongs to the trust fund, and as of 9 minutes ago, you're no longer a permitted resident." Nate turns, his face a mask of disbelief. "Where am I supposed to go?" I smile, remembering all the nights I lay awake while he was with Vanessa, planning this very moment. "Perhaps you could stay at the Boston Harbor Hotel?" "Oh, wait, your credit cards have all been frozen." "Well, I'm sure Vanessa would offer her sofa, but..." I glance meaningfully at the federal agents leading her to questioning. She might be a bit preoccupied. As Nate is led away, Eleanor Mitchell approaches me, tears in her eyes. "Rebecca, I'm so sorry. We had no idea he was..." "It's not your fault." I squeeze her hand gently. "You raised a good son. He just made very, very bad choices." Olivia appears at my side with another update. "Judge Morrison wants to see you, and the forensic accountants have found 3 more offshore accounts." I nod, gathering my things as the federal agents continue their work. Through the glass walls, I can see Nate being escorted to the lobby, his world collapsing around him. His phone is probably exploding with notifications: frozen accounts, canceled cards, suspended memberships, revoked access. "Mrs. Mitchell." One of the federal agents approaches. "We'll need a statement about the trust fund discrepancies." "Of course," I reply, smoothing my skirt as I stand. "I believe I have everything you need right here." I pat my briefcase, filled with months of careful documentation, weeks of meticulous planning, and years of quiet observation. Nate thought he was so clever, playing his games with the family fortune while his trophy wife smiled quietly at his side. He never realized that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should fear the most. The next few hours unfold like a perfectly orchestrated symphony of consequences. From my temporary office in the Mitchell Group's executive suite, Nate's former office, ironically, I watch the dominoes continue to fall through multiple screens and live feeds. His attempt to access the Cayman accounts was just denied, Olivia reports, monitoring the financial alerts. He tried using his backup passwords, the ones he thought nobody knew about. I smile, remembering how easy it was to find those passwords, scribbled in his private notebook, the one he kept in his secret safe behind our bedroom's Monet painting. How many attempts? 7 so far, each one triggering another alert to the financial authorities. My phone buzzes with a notification from our home security system. Nate has arrived at the brownstone, probably hoping to grab some essentials before the locks are changed. Through the camera feed, I watch him frantically shoving designer suits into his luggage. The same suits I helped him select, each one paid for with trust fund money he'll soon have to account for. "Should we tell him about the asset freeze?" Olivia asks, watching the feed over my shoulder. "Let him figure it out," I reply, turning my attention to another screen showing the federal investigators interviewing Vanessa. Her confident facade has crumbled completely now, mascara streaking down her face as she realizes the full implications of her role in Nate's scheme. "Mrs. Mitchell," Samantha enters with a fresh stack of documents. "The family's private bank just called. They've completed the initial audit of Nate's personal accounts." I raise an eyebrow. "And?" "He's been skimming from more than just the trust fund. They found irregular transfers from his grandmother's medical care account, his sister's children's education fund, even the family's charitable foundation." Eleanor Mitchell, who's been sitting quietly in the corner trying to process the morning's events, lets out a small sob. "The children's education fund? His own nieces and nephews?" I move to comfort my mother-in-law, the woman who welcomed me into her family with open arms 7 years ago. "We've already reversed the transfers, Eleanor. The children's futures are secure." My phone lights up with another notification. Nate, trying to check into the Four Seasons using his black card. I can almost see the color drain from his face as the card is declined. Through various feeds and alerts, I track his increasingly desperate attempts. The Ritz-Carlton, declined. The Peninsula, declined. The St. Regis declined. His lawyer just dropped him, Olivia announces, checking her messages. Apparently, he tried to pay the retainer with one of the frozen accounts. The firm has concerns about being paid with potentially fraudulent funds. A commotion in the hallway draws our attention. Through the glass walls, we see Vanessa being escorted out by federal agents, her designer handbag now filled with copies of her sworn statement. The look she shoots toward Nate's former office could freeze hell itself. She gave them everything, Samantha confirms, reviewing the preliminary report. Every meeting, every transaction, every promise he made. Turns out self-preservation trumps loyalty when federal charges are on the table. My phone buzzes again. A group text from our social circle about the upcoming charity gala at the Museum of Fine Arts. Nate's sister Madison has already removed him from the planning committee. His name disappears from the guest list in real time, his social world crumbling as quickly as his financial one. The trust fund audit team just found something interesting, Olivia calls out, her eyes wide as she reads from her tablet. Remember those business development trips to Switzerland? I turn to her, intrigued. The ones where he claimed to be meeting with private banking clients? He was actually viewing properties. High-end chalets in the Alps, all conveniently far from extradition treaties. They found incomplete purchase agreements on his company laptop. Eleanor's head snaps up. He was planning to run? With our family's money? He would try, I correct. Her, pulling up another document. But that would have been difficult considering I've had tax experts reviewing and certifying every trust fund transaction for the past 4 years. My phone lights up with another notification, Nate's attempt to access his cryptocurrency accounts. Sorry, darling, I murmur to the screen. Those wallets were transferred to the family's secure digital vault last week, along with everything else you thought you'd hidden so cleverly. Through the office windows, I can see the sun setting over Boston, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. In the reflection, I catch glimpses of federal agents still combing through files, forensic accountants tracking down every missing dollar, and family lawyers protecting generations of Mitchell wealth from one man's greed. Mrs. Mitchell, a senior federal investigator, approaches. We found evidence of potentially criminal transactions dating back 5 years. We'll need your statement about when you first noticed irregularities. I retrieve a carefully prepared timeline from my briefcase. I believe you'll find everything documented here, every transaction, every unauthorized transfer, every attempt to circumvent trust fund protocols. As the investigators continue their work, I receive one final notification for the day. Nate, having been denied access to every luxury hotel in Boston, has checked into a modest airport motel, paid for with borrowed cash since his accounts remain frozen. Should we tell him about tomorrow? Olivia asks, referring to the emergency family council meeting where Nate will be formally removed from all Mitchell family enterprises. I shake my head, watching his location dot on my phone's map, so far from the privileged world he's always known. Let him sleep tonight thinking he can still fix this. Tomorrow's revelations deserve a fresh audience. Eleanor stands, gathering her composure along with her Hermes bag. Rebecca, we can never thank you enough for protecting the family's legacy, I finish gently. Eleanor, when you welcomed me into your family, you made me a Mitchell. I protect what's mine. As the office slowly empties, I remain at my desk, surrounded by evidence of Nate's betrayal and my own careful preparation. On one screen, I watch him pacing in his motel room, probably trying to figure out how his perfect plan imploded so spectacularly. On another, I see Vanessa checking into a flight to her parents' home in Ohio, her dreams of becoming Mrs. Mitchell, evaporating like morning mist. My phone buzzes one last time, Nate trying to salvage something from the wreckage of his life. Baby, please, we need to talk. I can explain everything. I smile, thinking of all the nights I lay awake listening. to his lies about working late while I quietly built the case that would bring him down. "No need to explain, darling," I text back. "The federal investigators have all the explanations they need." Then I turn off my phone, gather my things, and prepare to head home to the brownstone that now belongs solely to me. Tomorrow will bring more revelations, more consequences, more dismantling of Nate's carefully constructed house of cards. But tonight, I'll sleep soundly in our king-sized bed, alone but victorious, while my husband learns what happens when you mistake quiet, patience for weakness, and underestimate the woman who held the real power all along. Tuesday morning brings the kind of headlines you can't buy with PR spin. Mitchell heir suspended from family trust amid fraud allegations. Scandal rocks Boston elite, trust fund manipulation scheme exposed. Society sweetheart's secret victory. A trophy wife saved a family fortune. I read them all from the comfort of my home office in the brownstone, sipping the rare Japanese tea Nate always claimed was too refined for my palate. The irony of enjoying his precious collection while watching his world burn isn't lost on me. "The private banking community is in an uproar," Olivia announces, entering with a fresh stack of financial papers. 3 other prominent families have already requested audits of their own trust funds. Apparently, Nate's scheme has everyone questioning their own financial managers. "His mother's on her way up," Samantha adds, checking her phone. "The doorman just called." I nod, setting down my teacup. Eleanor Mitchell has always been the family's emotional compass, and I know this meeting won't be easy for her. "Rebecca," Eleanor sweeps in, still elegant despite her obvious distress. "The press, have you seen the latest? They're calling it the trust fund takedown of the decade." I guide her to the sitting area, noting how her eyes linger on the empty spaces where Nate's photos once hung. The media will move on to the next scandal soon enough. What matters is protecting the family legacy. "The forensic accountants found something else," she says quietly, pulling out a folder. "Something worse." I take the documents, though. I already know what they'll show. Nate hadn't just been stealing from the trust fund. He'd been systematically looting his own family's personal accounts, his sister's children's college funds, his grandmother's medical care reserves, even his parents' retirement accounts. We knew he was troubled, but this... Eleanor's voice breaks. His own family. "Everything will be restored," I assure her, pulling up the recovery plan I'd prepared months ago. "Every account has been reconciled, every stolen dollar traced and returned." My phone buzzes with an update from the federal investigation team. They've found Nate's secret storage unit in Brooklyn. Inside, boxes of falsified documents detail years of financial manipulation, all the evidence they need for criminal charges. "Mrs. Mitchell," my assistant calls from the doorway. "Mr. Nate is in the lobby, demanding to be let up." He's not taking no for an answer. I pull up the security feed on my laptop. Nate, disheveled and desperate, arguing with the doorman. His Tom Ford suit, the one he wore to so many client meetings with Vanessa, is wrinkled from a night in. The airport motel. "Should I call security?" the assistant asks. "No need," I reply, pressing a button on my phone. "The police are already on their way. Anonymous tip about a person of interest in a federal fraud investigation causing a disturbance." Eleanor flinches at my words but doesn't object. Even a mother's love has its limits. "The Trust Fund Council is meeting in an hour," Olivia reminds me, checking her calendar. "They'll want your statement about assuming emergency control." I nod, gathering my materials. In the background, my screens show multiple scenes unfolding simultaneously. Nate being escorted from the building by police, Vanessa giving another tearful interview painting herself as another victim of his deception, federal agents boxing, up evidence from his office, society columnists speculating about the scandal's impact on upcoming charity gala season. "Rebecca," Eleanor speaks up suddenly, "there's something I need to tell you about why George made you trustee 4 years ago." I turn to my mother-in-law, curious. This is one piece of the puzzle I never fully understood. We knew, she says, simply about Nate's tendencies, the impulsive spending, the risky investments, the constant need for more. George saw it happening at the company, watched him taking bigger and bigger risks with other people's money. So you needed someone to protect the family fortune from your own son, I finish quietly. Eleanor nods, tears in her eyes. We interviewed dozens of financial experts, considered professional trustees from all the top firms. But George said we needed someone Nate would underestimate, someone he'd never suspect of watching his every move. The trophy wife he thought he'd chosen for her looks rather than her mind, I add, understanding dawning. When we learned about your background in finance, your experience with private wealth management, Eleanor manages a small smile. Well, let's just say George has always had an eye for talent. My phone buzzes again, more updates flooding in. Nate's membership at the Somerset Club, revoked. His position on the hospital board, suspended. His private banking privileges, at multiple institutions, terminated. His invitation to next month's charity gala, rescinded. His lawyer sent over a proposal, Olivia mentions, holding up another document. He's offering to sign a full confession in exchange for a monthly allowance from the trust fund. I almost laugh at the audacity. Let me guess, he still thinks he has something to negotiate with? He's claiming he has evidence of historical trust fund irregularities, says he'll go public if we don't meet his demands. This time I do laugh, pulling up a particular file on my laptop. You mean these documents? I turn the screen to show decades of pristine trust fund records, each transaction verified, each decision documented. The ones I've had independent auditors reviewing and certifying for the past 4 years. Through the window, I watch as Nate is driven away in a police car, his final attempt at blackmail failing as spectacularly as his other schemes. On my other screens, the Mitchell family's financial empire continues operating smoothly, the transition of power already complete. The family council is ready, my assistant announces. They're waiting in the main boardroom. I gather my things, preparing to officially accept control of the Mitchell family's financial future. Eleanor stands with me, straightening her shoulders with renewed strength. Rebecca, she says softly, thank you. Not just for stopping him, but for saving him from himself. If he'd continued much longer, the damage would have been irreparable, I finish. I know. That's why I had to act now. As we head to the ICI boardroom, my phone shows one final notification. Nate checking into an even cheaper motel, this time in New Jersey. How far the mighty have fallen. Mrs. Mitchell, Samantha calls out. Judge Morrison's office just confirmed the emergency hearing is set for tomorrow morning. They'll want your full testimony about the trust fund manipulation. I nod, already prepared. My evidence is organized, my statement drafted, my strategy in place. Tomorrow, Nate will learn the full extent of his mistakes. Not just the financial theft, but the fatal error of underestimating the woman he married. One last thing, Olivia adds. The family's PR team wants to know how to handle the press. They're calling you everything from financial avenger to trust fund guardian. Tell them no comments, I reply, stepping into the elevator. The numbers speak for themselves. As we ascend to the boardroom, I think about the day Nate first brought me home to meet his family, how he introduced me as his beautiful art history graduate, emphasizing my looks while dismissing my mind, how he never bothered to read the trust fund documents, never questioned why his father chose his new daughter-in-law as trustee. His last text message still sits unanswered on my phone. Please, baby, just tell me what you want. I'll do anything. Too late, Nate. Too late by exactly 7 years, 2 months, and 17 days. The time it took me to document every lie, trace every theft, and prepare for this moment of perfect justice. The boardroom doors open, revealing the assembled Mitchell Family Council. Time to show them exactly why George chose me to protect their legacy, and why Nate's biggest mistake wasn't stealing from the trust fund, but underestimating the woman who controlled it all along. 1 month later, the dust has finally begun to settle. I sit in my new office, the corner suite that once belonged to Nate's father, reviewing the latest trust fund performance reports. The Boston skyline stretches out before me, a glittering testament to generations of Mitchell family success that I helped preserve. The Wall Street Journal piece just went live, Olivia announces, entering with her tablet. Today's headline: Mitchell Trust Fund Revival, How Strategic Oversight Saved a Family Fortune. Any mention of Nate? I ask, though I already know. The answer: only as a cautionary tale. They're calling it the ultimate case study in trust fund governance. Your quotes about financial responsibility are featured prominently. I smile, remembering the interview I'd given last week. I'd been careful to focus on the importance of proper oversight rather than personal drama. The Mitchells, after all, still had a reputation to maintain. My phone lights up with a notification from the federal prosecutor's office. Nate's plea deal has been finalized. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he's agreed to provide evidence against larger financial fraud schemes he'd become entangled with. His new accommodations are quite a step down from the Four Seasons, Olivia observes dryly, showing me the detention center's location. Though, I hear the jumpsuit orange brings out his eyes. Vanessa sent another request, Samantha adds, entering with more papers. She's offering to write a tell-all about Nate's schemes in exchange for immunity. Tell her the federal prosecutors already have everything they need, I reply, pulling up our evidence files. Her Instagram post provided more than enough documentation. Through my office windows, I can see the trust fund's investment team hard at work under my leadership. They've already recovered every dollar Nate stole, plus implemented new safeguards to prevent future manipulation. Mrs. Mitchell, my assistant calls over the intercom. The family council is ready for your quarterly presentation. I gather my materials, including the comprehensive recovery plan I've implemented since taking control. The numbers tell a story of resurrection, assets secured, investments stabilized, legacy protected. Rebecca, Eleanor greets me warmly as I enter the boardroom. She's adapted to our new dynamic with remarkable grace, treating me more as a daughter than ever now that I've saved her family's fortune from her own son. The private banking community is calling you the trust fund whisperer, George adds with a proud smile. He's fully recovered from his heart surgery, thanks partly to the stress reduction of knowing his family's wealth is in capable hands. Speaking of community reactions, Olivia interjects, checking her messages. Nate's old social circle has been quite active. The Somerset Club just voted to remove his name from the membership rolls permanently. I take my place at the head of the boardroom table, the same spot where Nate once practiced his fraudulent presentations. The symmetry isn't lost on me. Before we begin, I address the assembled council. I want to share some updates about our enhanced security measures. My presentation outlines the new system of checks and balances I've implemented, multiple layers of oversight, regular audits, transparent reporting. Everything Nate tried to circumvent, now strengthened beyond manipulation. The forensic team found something interesting in Nate's old files, Samantha mentions during a break. Love letters to Vanessa written on trust fund letterhead. He was planning to propose at the family's holiday gala. How romantic, I comment dryly. Nothing says true love like embezzled diamonds. My phone buzzes with another update. Nate's lawyer making one last desperate attempt at negotiation. He's offering to reveal the location of more hidden accounts in exchange for a reduced restitution payment. Tell him not to bother, I instruct Samantha. We've already found everything, including the Bitcoin wallet he thought was untraceable. The afternoon brings a steady stream of developments. Nate's remaining club memberships, canceled. His social media accounts, suspended. His personal credit rating, destroyed. His reputation in financial circles, irreparable. His sister Madison, called, Olivia informs me. She's ready to sign over her children's trust fund oversight to you as well. Says she can't think of anyone better to protect their future. I accept the responsibility with a nod. The Bennett children's futures will be secure, a stark contrast to their uncle's current situation. The media wants to know if you'll attend next month's charity gala, my assistant mentions. You're being honored for your work in financial oversight and trust fund governance. Confirm the attendance, I decide, but keep the focus on financial responsibility, not personal drama. As evening approaches, I review one final set of documents, the complete record of Nate's downfall. Trust fund manipulation, documented. Personal account theft, proven. Federal charges, filed. Family reputation, preserved. Justice, served. My phone shows one last notification for the day. Nate's final attempt to access his old trust fund accounts from the detention center's computer, lab. Even now, he hasn't quite accepted his new reality. Should we tell him about the foundation? Olivia asks, referring to the new Mitchell Family Financial Literacy Initiative I've established. It's rather ironic, using recovered funds from his theft to educate others about trust fund responsibility. Let him read about it in the Financial Times, I reply, closing my laptop. I hear they deliver to federal detention centers. Eleanor appears in my doorway, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Rebecca, we just got Nate's letter. He's finally apologizing, says he understands now what he lost. Too late, I observe quietly. By exactly 7 years, 3 months, and 22 days. We stand together at my office window, watching the sunset over Boston Harbor. Somewhere in a federal detention facility, Nate sits in a cell, probably wondering how his perfect life unraveled so completely. Somewhere in Ohio, Vanessa works at her parents' yoga studio, her dreams of society life shattered like the trust she helped betray. And here I stand in the office that once represented everything Nate thought he deserved, protecting the legacy he tried to steal. My phone buzzes with an incoming email, another financial publication requesting an interview about trust fund governance. They're calling you the new face of financial stewardship, Eleanor mentions, reading over my shoulder. The woman who modernized trust fund oversight. I smile, thinking of all the nights Nate spent explaining basic finance to his simple wife, never realizing he was lecturing a financial expert about his own impending downfall. The family lawyers want to know if you'll consider writing a book, Olivia adds, about protecting generational wealth from internal threats. Perhaps, I muse, gathering my things for the day. I certainly have enough material. As I prepare to leave, my security feed shows Nate's last possessions being removed from the brownstone. His beloved wine collection, his designer wardrobe, his carefully curated art pieces, all being liquidated to repay his debt to the trust fund. One last thing, Samantha calls out. The federal prosecutors want to know if you'll testify at his sentencing hearing next month. I consider this, remembering every lie, every betrayal, every moment he underestimated me. No need, I decide. The evidence speaks for itself. Stepping into my private elevator, I think about the day Nate first brought me home to meet his family, how he showcased me like a prize, never bothering to look deeper than the surface, how he dismissed my interest in the family business as cute. My phone holds his final message, sent through his lawyer this morning. I finally understand what you were protecting, what I threw away. I'm sorry. Too late, Nate. You never realized that the real power wasn't in the trust fund itself, but in the trust you betrayed. And now, you have the rest of your sentence to contemplate the true cost of underestimating the woman who held your future in her hands all along. 6 months after Nate's sentencing, I stand at the podium of the Boston Financial Forum, addressing a room full of the city's most prominent trust fund managers and financial advisors. The irony isn't lost on me. speaking about financial security to the same people who once dismissed me as nothing more than a trophy wife. The greatest threat to generational wealth, I tell them, my voice carrying clearly through the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, isn't external. It's the complacency that comes from believing your position is untouchable. The audience hangs on every word. After all, the Mitchell Trust Fund case has become required reading at top business schools across the country. Mrs. Mitchell, one of the senior partners from Goldman Sachs, approaches after my speech. Your insights on trust fund governance are revolutionary. Would you consider joining our board of advisors? I smile, remembering how Nate used to explain basic investment concepts to me at parties like this. I'll have my office send over my credentials. Olivia appears at my elbow with updates from the morning's developments. 3 more family offices requesting our oversight protocols, 2 interview requests from financial publications, and 1 desperate letter from Nate still trying to explain himself from federal detention. The Family Financial Literacy Foundation launch is trending, she adds, showing me her tablet. They're calling it a paradigm shift in trust fund management. My phone buzzes with a message from Eleanor Mitchell. The family's annual holiday, Gala, is approaching, and for the first time in generations, it will celebrate not just wealth, but wisdom. The prosecutors sent over Nate's latest statement. Samantha joins us, tablet in hand. He's finally admitted to everything, even the schemes we hadn't uncovered yet. I take the tablet, scanning his confession. The depth of his betrayal still manages to surprise me. Hidden accounts in Dubai, shell companies in Luxembourg, plans to drain the family foundation. His cellmate says he spends his days reading financial journals, Olivia mentions. Apparently, he's finally learning about proper wealth management. Better late than never. A notification pops up on my phone. Vanessa has resurfaced, this time teaching mindful money management at her parents' yoga studio in Ohio. Her Instagram bio now reads, "Surviving Toxic Wealth, My Journey to Authenticity." At least someone learned something. The Trust Fund Council meeting is in an hour, my assistant reminds me. They're voting on the new governance structure you proposed. I gather my materials, including the comprehensive reform package I've spent months developing. The Mitchell family fortune won't just survive this crisis. It will emerge stronger, setting new standards for trust fund management. "Rebecca!" George Mitchell's voice booms across the ballroom. He's fully recovered now, his natural vigor restored once the stress of Nate's betrayal was removed. The Harvard Business School case study about your handling of the crisis just went live. I join him at a quiet corner table, accepting a glass of champagne. "How's Eleanor holding up?" "Better," he sighs. The therapist says accepting Nate's true nature was the first step. Your protection of the family fortune gave her the space to focus on healing. My phone shows another alert. Nate's former office has been completely transformed into the Mitchell Center for Financial Governance. The plaque outside reads, "Protecting Legacy Through Wisdom." The family lawyers finished processing the last of his restitution payments. Samantha approaches with more updates. Every dollar he stole has been recovered and reinvested. Through the ballroom's windows, I can see the Boston skyline. The same view Nate used to boast about controlling from his corner office. Now that same office serves as command central for protecting family fortunes from people like him. The financial media is calling it the Mitchell Standard. Olivia shows me another article. Your protocols for trust fund governance are being adopted by families across the country. I think about the day Nate first showed me his family's offices, how he patronizingly explained the concept of trust funds while I mentally cataloged every weakness in their security system. Your next appointment is here, my assistant announces. The Rothschild family's representatives want to discuss implementing your oversight systems. As I prepare for the meeting, my security feed shows one last image of Nate's former life being dismantled, his prized art collection being auctioned to repay his debt to the trust. The same collection he used to lecture me about, never realizing I'd majored in both art history and finance. Judge Morrison called, Samantha adds. She's recommending your case as required reading for financial court judges. Says it's the most comprehensive trust fund protection strategy she's ever seen. My phone buzzes with a notification from the Federal Detention Center. Nate has requested permission to enroll in online financial management courses. Trying to understand where I went wrong, his note reads. Should we tell him about the Foundation's new educational program? Olivia asks. The one teaching trust fund beneficiaries how to detect and prevent internal fraud. Let him figure it out, I reply, straightening my Chanel jacket. He always said he learned best through experience. Eleanor joins us, elegant as ever in her role as family matriarch. The Holiday Gala Committee has a suggestion. They want to honor you as guardian of legacy. I shake my head, remembering all the galas where Nate paraded me around like an accessory. No honors. The secured fortune speaks for itself. Through my phone, I watch various scenes unfold across the city. Federal investigators using my case to train new financial crimes specialists. Business schools teaching the Mitchell case as a master class in trust fund protection. Society columnists speculating about Nate's life behind bars. Financial advisors studying my oversight protocols. One last thing, Olivia calls out as I head to my next meeting. Nate's old social club is reopening their membership waitlist. Care to submit his replacement's name? I smile, thinking of all the times he used that club to impress his mistresses, flaunting the wealth he was secretly stealing. I have a better idea. Let's turn it into another foundation office. Something about financial literacy for future generations. The afternoon sun streams through the plaza's windows, catching the diamond on my left hand. Not my engagement ring from Nate, but my grandmother's ring, a symbol of true family legacy. On my desk, the latest trust fund reports show growth that would have been impossible under Nate's manipulation. Mrs. Mitchell, my assistant interrupts gently. The Wall Street Journal is here for your interview about transforming trust fund governance. I gather my thoughts, remembering every step of this journey. The quiet wife who watched and waited. The financial expert who documented every lie. The trustee who protected generations of wealth. The woman who refused to be underestimated. My phone shows one final notification for the day. Nate's lawyer making a last desperate pitch for leniency. He's a changed man, the message pleads. He understands now what he lost. Too late, I think, heading to the interview. Some lessons come at a price no trust fund can cover. As I take my seat across from the journalist, I catch my reflection. In the window, no longer the trophy wife Nate thought he married, but the guardian of legacy he never knew he needed. The reporter's first question makes me smile. Mrs. Mitchell, how does it feel to have revolutionized trust fund protection? It feels, I reply, thinking of Nate in his cell finally learning the true meaning of trust, exactly like justice. 1 year to the day after Nate's downfall, I stand in my office at Mitchell Tower, watching the sun rise over Boston. The view is different from up here, both literally and figuratively. The past year has transformed not just the Mitchell fortune, but the entire landscape of trust fund management. My phone lights up with the morning's first notification. Forbes magazine has just released their annual Power Players issue. The cover story. The woman who changed trust fund management forever, Rebecca Mitchell's revolution. The Times piece just went live too, Olivia announces, entering with her signature stack of updates. They're calling you the silent guardian of generational wealth. I scan the headline, amused by the irony. A year ago, these same publications barely noticed me. Just another pretty wife in Manhattan's social circus. Now they're studying my methods in business schools. Nate's latest letter arrived, Samantha adds quietly, placing a thin envelope on my desk. Unlike his early desperate pleas, this one is different. a simple handwritten confession of every mistake, every betrayal, every moment of hubris that led to his downfall. He's finally completed the financial literacy program in prison, Olivia mentions, checking her tablet. Graduated top of his class, ironically enough. Says he finally understands what he was supposed to be protecting. Through my office windows, I can see the bustling financial district, the same streets where Nate once strutted like a prince, never realizing he was walking toward his own destruction. Now those same streets are home to a new era of financial governance, shaped by the lessons of his fall. The Mitchell Family Foundation's annual report is ready for review, my assistant announces. The new financial literacy programs have reached over 10,000 trust fund beneficiaries this year. I take the report, pleased to see the impact of our work. What Nate tried to destroy has become a beacon of financial wisdom, helping other families protect their legacies from similar threats. Eleanor's on her way up, Samantha informs me. The Family Council approved your proposal for the new trust fund governance structure. When my mother-in-law enters, she carries herself with renewed strength. The past year has changed her too, from a woman blindsided by her son's betrayal to a fierce advocate for financial accountability. Rebecca, she begins, emotion thick. In her voice, the family wants you to know. What you've built from this tragedy, it's beyond anything we could have imagined. My phone buzzes with updates that underscore her words. 3 more financial institutions adopting the Mitchell protocols. 2 international banking conferences requesting keynote speeches. 1 prestigious Financial Security Award nomination. Vanessa sent another interview request, Olivia mentions. She's writing a book about financial infidelity. Wants your perspective. I decline with a simple email. Some stories don't need more telling. They need understanding. The trust fund's performance reports are in, Samantha adds, pulling up the latest figures. Growth is up 40% since you took control. Every dollar Nate stole has been recovered and multiplied. Through my security feeds, I can see multiple scenes playing out. Business school students studying the Mitchell case, financial advisors implementing my protection protocols, trust fund managers reviewing their security measures, future generations learning from Nate's mistakes. His parole hearing is next month, Olivia reminds me gently. They want to know if you'll submit a statement. I consider this, remembering every step of our journey. The quiet wife who watched and learned, the expert who documented every lie, the guardian who protected a legacy, the woman who refused to be underestimated. Send them this, I decide, pulling up the trust fund's latest performance report. Let the numbers speak for themselves. Eleanor touches my arm gently. He asks about you, in his letters. Says he finally understands what he had. Not just the money, but the trust. Some lessons, I reply, watching a new class of financial advisors enter the Mitchell Center for Financial Governance below. Come too late to change the past, but early enough to protect the future. My phone shows one final update. Nate's old office has been completely transformed into a state-of-the-art financial security center. The plaque outside reads, "Protecting Tomorrow's Legacy Today." The next generation of Mitchells starts their financial education program tomorrow, Olivia reminds me. Would you like to speak to them? I think about these children, Nate's nieces and nephews, the future of the family he betrayed. Thanks to our new protocols, they'll grow up understanding not just the privilege of wealth, but the responsibility of legacy. Tell them the truth, I decide, about trust, betrayal, and the price of underestimating those we dismiss. As the sun sets on another day in Boston's financial district, I stand at my office window, holding Nate's final letter. In it, he finally asks the question that took him a fortune and his freedom to understand. How did I not see who you really were? The answer, of course, was simple. He never looked past his own reflection. My phone shows one last notification. The Mitchell Family Trust Fund has just been named a gold standard in financial governance. The legacy Nate tried to destroy has emerged stronger, wiser, and more secure than ever. "Mrs. Mitchell," my assistant calls out. "They're ready for you in the boardroom. The next generation is waiting." I gather my materials, preparing to teach. Tomorrow's leaders the lessons learned from yesterday's mistakes. Through the window, Boston glitters like the fortune I protected. Beautiful, powerful, and worth every moment of patient waiting. As I head to the boardroom, I pass the wall of Mitchell family photos. Nate's portrait has been replaced by something more meaningful, a simple plaque that reads, "True wealth lies not in what we possess, but in what we protect." Some must learn this lesson through loss. Others are chosen to teach it through strength. In the end, Nate got exactly what he deserved. Time to contemplate the true cost of underestimating a woman he thought he could control. And I got what I earned: a legacy protected, a family restored, and a future secured by the quiet power of patient justice. The story of the Mitchell Trust Fund will be told for generations, not as a tragedy of betrayal, but as a testament to the strength that lies in being underestimated. And somewhere in a federal prison cell, Nate finally understands the most expensive lesson of his life. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one you should have feared the most. 2 years after the scandal that rocked Boston society, the Mitchell name has been reborn. What was once whispered about in country clubs as a cautionary tale of betrayal and deceit has transformed into a case study of financial resilience and strategic foresight. My vision has created ripples far beyond the Mitchell family. Today I'm preparing to address the World Economic Forum, an invitation that would have been unthinkable in the days when I was merely Nate's wife. My presentation on intergenerational wealth protection has drawn interest from royal families, tech billionaires, and old money dynasties alike. "You've revolutionized how we think about family wealth security," remarks the forum director as we walk toward the main hall. "Your methods have already prevented at least 3 major fraud attempts in prominent European families." I nod, maintaining the quiet confidence that has become my trademark. Prevention is infinitely less expensive than recovery. My phone discreetly vibrates. Olivia's special tone. I excuse myself momentarily to take the call. "I thought you'd want to know immediately," she begins, her voice controlled but excited. "The Mitchell Financial Literacy Foundation has just received federal approval for its curriculum to be taught in business schools nationwide. The first classes start next semester." Pride swells in my chest, not the shallow pride Nate once chased through luxury purchases and social climbing, but something deeper, something built. "That's excellent news. Please arrange congratulatory gifts for the curriculum development team." As I slip my phone away, I spot a familiar face across the marble lobby, Vanessa, looking very different from her yoga instructor. Days. She's representing some wellness finance startup, here as a minor speaker on a panel about financial trauma recovery. Our eyes meet briefly. She freezes, then quickly diverts her gaze, hurrying in the opposite direction. I allow myself a small smile. How interesting that she found a way to monetize her own downfall. Perhaps she learned something of value from the experience after all. My presentation goes exceedingly well. Standing ovation, countless business, cards pressed into my hands afterward, meeting requests from sovereign wealth funds and century-old family offices. I accept each compliment with gracious modesty, remembering how Nate would have preened and boasted in this spotlight. Back in my hotel suite, I review the latest quarterly reports from the Mitchell Holdings. The trust has outperformed market benchmarks by 22%, a remarkable achievement in the current economic climate. More importantly, the new multi-layered oversight systems have functioned perfectly, flagging and preventing 2 potential irregularities before they became problems. There's a knock at my door, room service with a package that was delivered to the front desk. Inside is a slim volume entitled Legacy Protection: The Mitchell Method, with my name as author. I took the liberty of compiling your speeches and papers, reads Eleanor's handwritten note. The publisher believes it will become the definitive work on modern trust fund governance. The first printing has already sold out on pre-orders alone. I trace my fingers over the embossed cover. Another unexpected milestone in this journey that began with betrayal and blossomed into something so much more significant. My phone rings. An unknown number with a correctional facility prefix. I hesitate only briefly before answering. Rebecca. Nate's voice sounds older, rougher around the edges. Thank you for accepting my call. I'm listening, I reply, my tone neutral. I've been following your work from in here. The foundation, the reforms, the WEF speech today. He pauses. You were always meant for greatness. I just never had the wisdom to see it. Is there something specific you needed, Nate? I keep my voice steady, neither cold nor warm. My parole hearing is next month. I'm not asking you to support it, he adds quickly. But I wanted you to know that if I do get out, I've accepted a position teaching financial ethics at a community college in Arizona. About as far from high finance as you can get. That seems appropriate. His voice catches. I thought you should know that your work changed more than just the financial world. It changed me too. After we hang up, I stand by the hotel window, gazing out at the Swiss mountains. How strange life is, how unpredictable its currents. 4 years ago, I was playing the part assigned to me. The beautiful, agreeable trophy, wife, pretending not to understand the financial conversations happening around me. Now those same men who dismissed me come seeking my guidance, my protection, my wisdom. My phone chimes with a message from Samantha. Judge Morrison has been appointed to the Federal Financial Crimes Task Force. She's specifically requested our case files as training materials. Another brick in the foundation of what's become my life's work. Later that evening, as I prepare for a dinner with banking executives, I receive a text from Eleanor. The cousins' college funds have fully recovered with interest. Thank you for making our family whole again. This, more than the accolades or speaking fees or book deals, is what matters most. The protection of a legacy that spans generations, not just financial assets, but values, security, and trust. The Mitchell scandal is now taught in business ethics courses nationwide. The lessons extracted from Nate's downfall have strengthened trust fund governance globally. What he intended as betrayal became transformation instead. At dinner, the CEO of Switzerland's largest private bank raises his glass in my direction. To the architect of the new age of financial governance, you've taken trauma and created template. I acknowledge the toast with a modest nod, but inside, I'm reflecting on just how far this journey has taken me. From the woman whose financial acumen was deliberately hidden behind designer clothes, to the authority whose methods have been adopted by central banks. Later that night, I receive one more notification. The Mitchell Foundation's new scholarship program has selected its first recipients. 20 students from underprivileged backgrounds will receive full funding for degrees in financial management and ethics. Their graduation requirement: developing protection protocols for community development funds in their hometowns. I close my eyes, savoring this moment. This is the true victory, not Nate's punishment, but the lasting good that rose from the ashes of his betrayal. The ripples that will continue long after both of us are gone. The next morning brings news I wasn't expecting. George Mitchell has suffered a mild stroke. Though the prognosis is positive, it's time to enact the succession plans we'd carefully crafted. The board vote was unanimous, Olivia informs me during our emergency video call. You've been named chairperson of the Mitchell Group, effective immediately. I take a deep breath, feeling the weight of this new responsibility. Please arrange for my immediate return to Boston. 16 hours later, I'm sitting beside George's hospital bed, reviewing urgent documents that require his signature before control officially transfers to me. "I always knew," he says weakly after the papers are signed. "From the day Nate brought you home, there was a sharpness behind your eyes that reminded me of myself at your age." "You took quite a risk," I reply, adjusting his pillows. "What if I had been as dishonest as your son?" He smiles faintly. "My risk assessment skills are better than that. I saw how you watched everyone, how you listened more than you spoke, how you asked the right questions when you did speak." I squeeze his hand gently. "Rest now. I'll handle everything." And I do. The transition is seamless. Stock prices actually rise when the announcement is made. The financial press calls it the natural evolution of the Mitchell Renaissance. 3 days later, as I settle into what was once George's office, Samantha delivers an interesting piece of news. Vanessa's book deal fell through. Apparently, her publishers became concerned about potential legal exposure after reviewing her manuscript. "How unfortunate for her," I remark, though I know perfectly well that our legal team had sent a meticulously documented letter outlining the defamation concerns in her proposed tell-all. "Should we do anything further?" Samantha asks. I consider this briefly. No, her irrelevance is punishment enough. That afternoon, I visit Eleanor at the family estate in Beacon Hill. She's arranging flowers in the solarium, looking more at peace than I've seen her in years. "George is asking for you," she says, placing a perfect white rose in the center of her arrangement. "Something about the Tokyo expansion." "I'll see him this evening," I promise. "But first, I wanted to discuss the renewal of the family photographs in the main office. I think it's time we commission new portraits." She nods, understanding the deeper meaning. A fresh chapter deserves fresh images. Exactly. As I prepare to leave, she gently touches my arm. "You know, when Nate first brought you home, I worried you might be too refined, too delicate for our world." I smile at the irony. Appearances can be deceiving. Indeed. You turned out to be the backbone none of us knew we needed. Back at Mitchell Tower, I review the latest security upgrades to our financial systems. The new blockchain verification protocol we've developed has generated significant interest from regulatory agencies worldwide. The Federal Reserve has requested a presentation, my assistant informs me. They're considering implementing a version of our authentication framework for interbank transfers. I nod, making a note to have Olivia prepare the materials. What began as protection for one family has evolved into a system that might someday safeguard national financial infrastructures. That evening, as I sit alone in my office reviewing global market reports, I receive a notification that Nate's parole has been granted. He'll be released in 3 weeks, under strict financial supervision and prohibited from entering Massachusetts without court approval. I feel nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no concern. He has become irrelevant to the life and legacy I now steward. My phone rings. It's the Dean of Harvard Business School. "Mrs. Mitchell, we'd like to discuss establishing an endowed chair in financial ethics and governance in your name." As we discuss the details, I gaze out at the Boston skyline, now partly owned by the very trust Nate tried to plunder. The Mitchell holdings have diversified and strengthened under my guidance. The family name, once teetering on the brink of scandal, now represents integrity and innovation in financial circles. Later that night, as I prepare for bed in what was once our shared brownstone, I catch myself smiling at the thought of tomorrow's board meeting. I'll be unveiling the 5-year strategic plan I've developed, a bold vision for expanding the Mitchell legacy into emerging markets while strengthening its ethical foundation. The grandchildren, Nate's nieces and nephews, now attend the financial literacy programs I created. The oldest, 16-year-old Abigail, shows particular promise. Perhaps someday she'll sit where I do now, continuing the work of protecting and growing what we've built. As I drift toward sleep, my mind returns to a memory: Nate introducing me at a charity gala shortly after our wedding. "My beautiful wife," he'd said, his hand possessively at my waist. "She makes everything prettier, doesn't she? Including my arm." The other men had laughed, their wives had smiled politely, and I had played my part: the lovely ornament, the status symbol, the beautiful empty vessel. How could he have known that inside that vessel was the architect of his downfall and the salvation of his family's legacy? How could any of them have guessed that the woman they underestimated would rewrite the rules of their world? My last thought before sleep claims me is not of Nate, nor of revenge, nor even of justice. It is of tomorrow, and the future I continue to build. A future secured by wisdom, foresight, and the power of being underestimated. 5 years after the scandal that transformed Boston's financial landscape, the Mitchell name has become synonymous with integrity and innovation. What began as one family's private tragedy has evolved into a global movement for financial accountability. I now divide my time between overseeing the Mitchell Group's expanding empire and leading the International Trust Fund Governance Council, an organization I founded that has established new standards for wealth management across 4 continents. Today, I'm sitting in my office at Mitchell Tower, preparing to announce our most ambitious initiative yet: a comprehensive financial literacy program targeting vulnerable populations at risk of predatory wealth management schemes. The irony isn't lost on me that Nate's betrayal would ultimately lead to protecting thousands of others from similar exploitation. "The advance registration numbers are impressive," says Olivia, reviewing the data on her tablet. "Over 300 family offices have signed up for the certification program, and we have a waiting list for the next 3 sessions." I nod, satisfied with the progress. "What about the university partnerships?" 16 elite business. Schools have integrated our curriculum. The Mitchell method is now required study for finance majors at Harvard, Wharton, London School of Economics, and Singapore Management University. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office, I can see Boston spread out before me, the city where I once played the role of the beautiful, naïve trophy wife. The same city where I now shape financial policy and mentor the next generation of wealth protectors. My intercom buzzes softly. "Mrs. Mitchell, Judge Morrison is here for your lunch appointment." Judge Morrison, now Justice Morrison since. Her appointment to the Supreme Judicial Court has become both a close ally and friend. Our collaboration on strengthening financial oversight laws has closed numerous loopholes that people like Nate once exploited. "Rebecca," she greets me warmly as she enters, "congratulations on the Council's new accreditation program. I've already heard from several judicial colleagues who are recommending it to families appearing before them in trust disputes." "Change happens slowly," I reply, guiding her to the private dining room adjacent to my office. "But it happens." Over lunch, we discuss the upcoming judicial conference where I'll be delivering the keynote address on detecting early signs of trust fund mismanagement. As we talk, my phone lights up with a news alert. A profile of me in The Economist has just been published online. The headline reads, "The Architect of Modern Trust Governance: How Rebecca Mitchell Transformed a Family Crisis into a Financial Revolution." "You should be proud," Justice Morrison says, noting my glance at the phone. "What you've built goes far beyond recovering from one man's betrayal." "I prefer to focus on what's ahead rather than what's behind," I reply, though I allow myself a moment to acknowledge how far I've come from the woman who signed those first papers in Samantha's office 5 years ago. After lunch, I have a scheduled video call with Eleanor Mitchell. Now in her 70s, she has become an unexpected champion for financial transparency, often speaking to women's groups about the importance of understanding family finances regardless of who handles the day-to-day management. "Rebecca, darling," she beams at me through the screen from her winter home in Palm Beach. "I've just received the most wonderful news. The Mitchell Financial Literacy Foundation has been nominated for the Forrester Award. The Forrester, the most prestigious recognition in financial education innovation. Another milestone I never anticipated when this journey began. That's wonderful, Eleanor. The team has worked incredibly hard. It's all because of you, my dear. You've turned our family's darkest chapter into its finest hour. Her eyes grow momentarily sad. I received a letter from Nate yesterday. He's completed his first year teaching at that community college in Arizona. I keep my expression neutral. And how is he? Humbled? Changed? He's developing a course on financial ethics based on his own failings. She hesitates. He asked about you, whether you've received his letters. I have, I acknowledge. The truth is that Nate has written to me every month since his release from prison 3 years ago. Each letter sits in a folder in my private safe. Read once, never answered. Will you ever forgive him? Eleanor asks gently. I consider my answer carefully. Forgiveness implies an emotional investment I no longer have. I've moved beyond Nate, beyond what happened. The Mitchell legacy is secure. That's what matters. She nods, understanding more than most would. The annual family gathering is next month. George and I would love to have you at the estate, as always. I wouldn't miss it. Despite the divorce that legally separated me from Nate years ago, the Mitchell family has remained my family. In fact, my role has only deepened as I've guided them through the reconstruction of their financial dynasty. After ending the call, I review the final draft of my upcoming book, Invisible Guardians: How Financial Vigilance Preserves Generational Wealth. The publisher expects it to be a definitive work in the field, with pre-orders already exceeding their projections. My assistant appears at the door. Your 4 o'clock has arrived, Mrs. Mitchell, and Ms. Torres asked me to remind you about the foundation board meeting at 6. My schedule remains relentlessly full, exactly how I prefer it. The empire I've built from the ashes of betrayal demands constant attention, not unlike tending a garden that grows more extensive and complex with each passing season. My 4 o'clock is with Abigail Mitchell, Nate's niece, and the most promising member of the younger generation. Now 21 and in her final year at MIT, she's shown remarkable aptitude for financial system security, the very field that helped me expose her uncle's schemes. Aunt Rebecca, she greets me with a warm hug. Though we share no blood relation, she's considered me family since I protected her college fund from Nate's desperate pillaging in those final days before his exposure. I've been reviewing your proposal for blockchain applications in trust fund management, I tell her as we settle into the conversation area of my office. It's innovative, potentially groundbreaking if implemented correctly. Her eyes light, up with the same passion for financial protection that I once had to hide. The current verification systems still have too many human touchpoints. My protocol would reduce potential manipulation by nearly 80%. I'd like you to present it at the next Mitchell Group Innovation Summit. If it tests well, we'll implement it across all family holdings first, then offer it to the council members. She straightens in her chair, suddenly looking very much like her grandfather. You're serious? That would be incredible. You've earned it, I tell her simply. You represent the future of what we're building here. After discussing the technical details of her proposal, our conversation shifts to her post-graduation plans. I've received offers from Goldman Sachs and McKinsey, she tells me, but what I really want is to work with you at the Mitchell Center for Financial Governance. I study her carefully. Are you certain those firms would fast-track your career? I am, she replies with conviction. What you've built here, it's not just about protecting wealth. It's about protecting people. That's what I want to be part of. I feel an unexpected swell of emotion. This is perhaps the most meaningful legacy to emerge from the ashes of Nate's betrayal. A new generation committed to using financial expertise as a shield rather than a weapon. We'll create a position for you, I tell her. something that leverages your technical skills while giving you exposure to the strategic side of our work. Later that evening, as I leave the foundation board meeting, my security detail escorts me to the waiting car. My elevation to one of Boston's most influential financial figures has necessitated certain precautions, a fact that still occasionally strikes me as surreal. "Back to Beacon Hill, Mrs. Mitchell?" asks Thomas, my driver. "Yes, but let's take the scenic route along the harbor." As we drive through the city, I reflect on how Boston itself has changed during these 5 years. The financial community has undergone a significant transformation, with the Mitchell standards now voluntarily adopted by most major firms and family offices. What began as my personal quest for justice has reshaped the landscape of wealth management. My phone rings, Samantha with news that can't wait until morning. "Rebecca, the governor just signed the Financial Legacy Protection Act. It passed unanimously." I close my eyes briefly, savoring this victory. The legislation, which I helped draft based on the vulnerabilities exposed in the Mitchell case, will require multi-level authentication for all trust fund transactions above a certain threshold and mandate independent quarterly audits. That's excellent news. Please send appreciation gifts to everyone on the advocacy team. "Already arranged," she assures me. "And there's one more thing you should know. Vanessa Palmer has applied for a position with the Regulatory Compliance Division at First Boston Trust." I raise an eyebrow at this unexpected development. Interesting career choice for a former yoga instructor turned financial consultant. "I thought you'd want to be aware, given their status as a Mitchell group banking partner." "Thank you for the information. I'll have Olivia look into it discreetly." The car turns onto Beacon Street, approaching the historic brownstone I once shared with Nate. Though I could have moved to any number of more ostentatious addresses after the divorce, I chose to remain. The house has been completely renovated, every trace of our former life together erased and replaced with my own vision, much like the Mitchell financial empire itself. As I enter my home, I'm greeted by the peaceful silence I've come to treasure. No more listening for Nate's key in the door. No more pretending to believe transparent lies about late meetings or business emergencies. The life I've built belongs entirely to me. In my private study, I review the day's market reports. The Mitchell Group's diversification strategy has proven remarkably successful, with our technology and sustainable energy portfolios significantly outperforming market benchmarks. What Nate nearly destroyed has more than tripled in value under my stewardship. A discreet notification sounds on my personal tablet, an alert from the monitoring system I still maintain on public mentions of Nate Mitchell. Today's ping is an announcement of his participation in a panel discussion at a small financial ethics symposium in Phoenix. From fraudster to educator, one man's journey through the financial justice system. I study his photograph in the EI announcement. 5 years have aged him considerably. His once perfect hair now gray at the temples, lines etched deeply around his eyes. He looks smaller somehow, diminished not just by prison, but by the weight of his own failings. For a brief moment, I allow myself to remember the man I married. Charming, ambitious, and utterly self-absorbed. The man who saw me as nothing more than a beautiful accessory to his imagined brilliance. The man who never bothered to look beneath the surface and discover who I really was. His loss, my gain. I close the alert without further reaction and turn instead to the speech I'm drafting for next week's International Banking Conference. The future demands my attention far more than the past. My home security system signals an incoming package, requiring authentication. When I check the delivery details, I'm surprised to see it's from the federal prosecutor who handled Nate's case, now the U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts. Inside the package is a first edition of Financial Oversight, in the modern era, with a handwritten note. Rebecca, Your case inspired me to specialize in financial crimes prosecution. 5 years later, we've secured convictions in 17 similar trust fund fraud cases. Thought you might appreciate knowing the ripple effects of your courage. With admiration, Julia Reynolds. I placed the book on my library shelf, contemplating how far the consequences of my actions have spread, like concentric circles expanding outward from a single dropped stone. What began as personal justice has transformed into systemic change. The following morning brings news that one of New York's oldest family fortunes is in crisis due to suspected embezzlement by the grandson who serves as trustee. The family has specifically requested my guidance in addressing the situation. They're willing to fly you down on their private jet today, Olivia informs me. According to their attorney, they've been implementing portions of the Mitchell Protocol for the past year but missed some key warning signs. Clear my schedule for the next 2 days, I instruct her. And contact Samantha. I want her to join us with the forensic accounting team. Within hours, we're airborne to New York, reviewing the preliminary information provided by the family's attorneys. The pattern is dishearteningly familiar. Trusted family member, gradual expansion of financial authority, systematic siphoning of funds through elaborately disguised transactions. It's like they're reading from Nate's playbook, Samantha observes as we analyze the documentation. Financial predators tend to follow similar patterns, I reply. That's what makes them predictable and ultimately detectable. When we arrive, at the family's Fifth Avenue offices, we're met with the same mixture of shock, betrayal, and determination I once saw on George and Eleanor's faces. The family patriarch, a man in his 80s who built a real estate empire from his immigrant father's single apartment building, looks at me with desperate hope. Mrs. Mitchell, you're the only person who's successfully navigated a situation like ours without public scandal destroying 3 generations of work. Please tell me there's a way through this. There is, I assure him with the quiet confidence that has become my trademark. What feels like an ending today can become a new beginning, stronger and more secure than before. Over the next 48 hours, we implement the crisis response framework I've perfected over the past 5 years, securing assets, documenting evidence, restructuring oversight, preparing legal consequences that balance justice with family privacy. On the flight back to Boston, Samantha reviews the preliminary recovery projections. They'll reclaim at least 80% of the misappropriated funds. Not ideal, but far better than most families manage in these situations. Have Olivia add them to the priority list for our next advanced protection seminar, I instruct, and make sure their younger family members receive invitations to the education program. As our plane begins its descent into Boston, I catch a glimpse of Mitchell Tower rising above the city skyline. 35 stories of glass and steel housing the corporate headquarters, financial governance center, and educational foundation that now constitute my life's work. 5 years ago, I sat in Samantha's office signing papers that would expose Nate's betrayal and protect the Mitchell legacy. I never imagined that single act of self-preservation would evolve into a global movement for financial accountability, that my personal pain would become a catalyst for systemic change. The next morning, I have breakfast with George Mitchell at his Back Bay Club, a monthly tradition we've maintained since he stepped down as chairman and I assumed leadership of the family enterprises. At 82, he remains remarkably sharp, taking particular interest in our expansion into emerging markets. The Singapore office exceeded projections by 22% last quarter, I inform him, knowing how much he enjoys these updates. And the Sustainable Investment Fund has attracted another $300 million in commitments. He nods with satisfaction. You've built something remarkable, Rebecca. Far beyond what any of us imagined possible. We built it together, I remind him. Your decision to make me trustee was the foundation everything else stands upon. His eyes, so like Nate's yet so different in their wisdom, study me carefully. Have I ever told you what convinced me you were the right choice? You mentioned seeing something in me that reminded you of yourself. I recall. That's part of it. He sets down his coffee cup precisely. But there was a specific moment. Do you remember the first dinner you attended at our home? Nate was explaining some complicated investment strategy to the table, and you asked a single question about the risk assessment metrics. I smile at the memory. He told me not to worry my pretty head about such complex matters. Yes, and most women in your position would have accepted that dismissal. But I saw your eyes. You didn't push back. That would have been too obvious. Instead, you watched, you listened, and I could practically see you calculating every vulnerability in his approach. George leans forward slightly. In that moment, I knew you understood far more than you revealed. I knew you were exactly what our family needed. You took quite a gamble, I observe. The best investments often appear risky to the untrained eye. He smiles, the Mitchell family confidence momentarily visible beneath his age-softened features. I simply recognized undervalued potential when others saw only surface attributes. After breakfast, I'm scheduled to meet with a delegation from the Asian Development Bank, who are interested in implementing our governance protocols across their regional trust operations. As my car navigates Boston's morning traffic, my phone alerts me to an unexpected development. Vanessa Palmer has withdrawn her application to First Boston Trust and accepted a position with a small financial education nonprofit in the Midwest. Interesting pivot, Olivia comments when I mention it during our pre-meeting brief. Their focus is helping women understand and manage family finances after divorce or widowhood. Perhaps she found her calling after all, I reply, thinking of how experiences, even painful ones, shape our eventual paths. Monitor the situation, but no intervention needed. The meeting with the Asian delegation proves productive, resulting in a formal agreement to establish a Mitchell Governance Center in Singapore. As we conclude, the delegation head presents me with a traditional silk scroll inscribed with a Chinese proverb. This saying reminds us that true strength often hides beneath a calm surface, she explains. Like still water that runs deep. We believe it captures the essence of your approach to financial protection. I accept the gift with genuine appreciation, struck by how perfectly it encapsulates my journey from underestimated wife to financial guardian. Later that afternoon, I visit the Mitchell Center for Financial Education, where a special program for high school students is underway. Watching these young people, particularly the girls, confidently discussing investment strategies and protection protocols fills me with profound satisfaction. They will enter adulthood with knowledge I had to conceal, wielding financial literacy as a birthright rather than a secret weapon. One student, a 14-year-old girl with serious eyes behind stylish glasses, approaches me after the session. Mrs. Mitchell, I read about how you saved your family's trust fund from fraud. Did you always know you would work in financial protection? I consider how to answer, aware of the many young ears listening nearby. I always understood the importance of knowing more than others expected me to know, I tell her. True security comes from knowledge others don't realize you possess. Like a superpower, she says thoughtfully. Exactly like that. I smile at her perceptiveness. The most effective power is the kind no one sees coming. That evening, I attend a charity gala at the Museum of Fine Arts, the same event where, years ago, Nate once introduced me as his beautiful, decorative wife to a room full of financial power brokers who chuckled appreciatively at his casual diminishment. Tonight, I enter alone, immediately surrounded by those same power brokers, now eager to discuss my latest financial governance innovations or secure spots in the Mitchell certification program. The women who once viewed me with pitying condescension now approach for mentorship and advice. Rebecca, calls the museum's director, hurrying toward me. We've raised nearly double last year's total, largely thanks to your foundation's matching grant structure. The educational programs are fully funded for the next 3 years. Excellent news, I reply, genuinely pleased. The Mitchell Foundation's focus on financial education for underserved communities has become a cornerstone of our philanthropy, turning the tools of wealth protection into ladders of opportunity. As I circulate through the gala, accepting congratulations on the Mitchell Group's latest achievements and the Council's expanding influence, I catch a glimpse of myself in one of the gallery's decorative mirrors. The reflection shows a woman entirely different from the one who once stood in this same room playing the role Nate assigned her. This woman stands taller, speaks with quiet authority, moves with the confidence of someone who has built an empire, from the ground up. The beautiful clothes remain. I've never seen the need to reject aesthetics in favor of power when one can so easily embody both, but they now frame rather than define. Near midnight, as the gala winds down, I step outside, for a moment of quiet beneath the stars. Boston's skyline glitters before me, a constellation of light and possibility I once viewed only as scenery, and now help shape through my influence and decisions. My phone vibrates with a text from Eleanor. The family portrait commissioner called. He suggests next month when the foliage is at its peak. I've told him you'll have final approval on the setting. I smile at this small but significant detail. The new Mitchell family portrait, the one that will hang in the main boardroom for generations to come, will feature me in the center alongside George and Eleanor, the 3 architects of the family's renaissance. Nate will be conspicuously absent, his legacy overwritten by the truth that emerged from his betrayal. As my driver takes me home through Boston's quiet streets, I reflect on the journey of these past 5 years. The woman who signed those papers in Samantha's office could never have imagined the life she was beginning, the institutions she would build, the policies she would shape, the legacy she would create. That woman sought justice. This woman has found something far more valuable: impact. In my quiet brownstone, I prepare for bed with the satisfaction of a day well spent and the anticipation of tomorrow's opportunities. On my nightstand sits a small jade figurine Eleanor gave me last Christmas, a phoenix rising from ashes, ancient symbol of rebirth and renewal. How fitting that symbol has become. From the ashes of betrayal and underestimation rose something magnificent, not just the restored Mitchell fortune or my personal success, but a fundamental shift in how generational wealth is protected and managed across the globe. As I drift toward sleep, my mind turns briefly to Nate, teaching his small ethics class in Arizona, living with the consequences of his choices. I wonder if he truly understands the magnitude of what he lost, not just the fortune or the freedom, but the opportunity to be part of something transformative. His underestimation became my greatest advantage. His betrayal became my catalyst. His mistake became my masterpiece. Tomorrow brings another day of building, strengthening, and expanding the legacy that began with a single act of self-protection. Another day of showing the world what becomes possible when women translate being underestimated into being unstoppable. The quiet wife he never truly saw has become the financial visionary everyone now watches. The silent power he never recognized has transformed an entire industry. And somewhere in Arizona, Nate Mitchell knows the most expensive truth of his life. Sometimes, the person you should fear most is the one whose power you never bothered to see. 10 years have passed since the day I signed those papers in Samantha's office, setting in motion events that would transform not only my life, but the entire landscape of financial governance. What began as a personal act of justice has evolved into a global revolution in how generational wealth is protected and managed. Today, I'm standing in the grand atrium of the newly completed Mitchell Institute for Financial Integrity, a gleaming 12-story building in downtown Boston that houses our research facilities, educational programs, and global oversight operations. The building's dedication ceremony has drawn financial leaders from around the world, along with media eager to document what The Economist recently called the most significant development in trust fund security since the creation of modern banking. Rebecca, George Mitchell approaches, leaning slightly on his cane but still commanding respect at 87. They're asking if you're ready to begin the ceremony. I nod, taking a moment to observe the gathering. Central bank governors stand shoulder to shoulder with family office directors. Regulatory officials mingle with academic researchers. Every major financial publication has sent representatives. It's quite remarkable, George comments, following my gaze. 10 years ago, they dismissed you as a socialite seeking revenge. Today, they hang on your every word about financial governance. Perception is rarely reality, I reply with a small smile. That's been true in finance as much as in personal relationships. The ceremony itself is meticulously orchestrated, like everything in my life now. My opening remarks emphasize how the Institute represents not an endpoint, but a beginning, a foundation for the next phase of financial integrity work. I avoid any mention of personal history, focusing instead on the future we're building. After the ribbon cutting, I navigate through waves of congratulations and requests for private meetings. The Mitchell method of financial governance has become the gold standard worldwide, with our certification now required by most major banks before opening family trust accounts. What began as my response to betrayal has fundamentally altered how wealth is protected across generations. As the formal reception begins, I notice a familiar face on the periphery of the crowd. Alexandra Carter, the journalist whose exposé on Nate's downfall first brought the Mitchell case to national attention. Now editor-in-chief of Financial Governance Quarterly, a publication that exists largely because of the field I helped create. I'm working on a 10th anniversary retrospective, she tells me. The industry transformation angle is clear, but I'm curious about the personal journey. How does it feel to have turned personal betrayal into global impact? I consider her question carefully, aware that my answer will be quoted extensively. Transformation rarely begins with comfort. Often it starts with disruption. A foundation shaken reveals what truly matters and what needs to be rebuilt differently. I simply chose to rebuild something that could help others avoid similar disruptions. My diplomatic answer satisfies her professional needs while revealing little of my private thoughts, a balance I've perfected over the years. As I continue through the reception, Olivia appears at my elbow with updates that can't wait. The UAE Sovereign Wealth Fund confirmed their adoption of the full Mitchell Protocol, and Judge Morrison called the Financial Oversight Act amendments passed the Senate committee unanimously. I nod, pleased with both developments. The legislation, which I helped draft, will extend many of our private governance innovations into regulatory requirements for all trust funds above a certain size. And there's one more thing, Olivia adds, her voice dropping slightly. Nate has requested credentials to attend the International Financial Ethics Conference next month in Chicago. Our foundation is the primary sponsor. I maintain my composed expression, though this news catches me off guard. In the decade since his downfall, Nate has built a modest career as an ethics educator, speaking primarily to small community groups and regional business programs. His application cites his development of a case study curriculum based on his own violations, Olivia continues. Apparently, it's being used in several community college programs. I consider the implications carefully. Approve the credentials. But schedule his presentation in one of the smaller breakout rooms, not the main program. She nods, understanding the nuance of my decision. Neither vindictive blocking nor prominent featuring, simply a neutral acknowledgement of his minor role in the field we now dominate. Later that evening, as the celebration continues, I step away for a moment of reflection in my private office, within the new building. The space is designed to my exact specifications, clean contemporary lines balanced with timeless elegance, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor, walls lined with awards and recognitions that track the growth of my influence. My phone lights up with a message from Abigail, now 31, and serving as the Institute's Director of Technological Innovation. Her blockchain verification system has become the backbone of our most advanced protection protocols. System. Integration complete in London and Tokyo offices. Security protocols exceeding benchmarks by 17%. Also, grandfather sends his love. He's tired but thrilled with today's success. I smile at her message, proud of the remarkable woman she's become. Under my mentorship, Abigail has emerged as the heir apparent to the Mitchell financial empire, not by bloodline alone, but through demonstrated brilliance and commitment to our mission of integrity. A soft knock at the door interrupts my thoughts. Eleanor enters, elegant as always at 82, though moving more slowly these days. "There you are," she says warmly. "Hiding from your own triumph?" Taking a moment to appreciate it, I correct her gently. "There's a difference." She joins me at the window, gazing out at the harbor lights. "I've been thinking about that first night, after everything came to light. Do you remember what you said to me? That we would rebuild stronger than before, I recall. That the Mitchell legacy would survive. You promised me the family name would come to stand for financial integrity rather than scandal." She takes my hand, her eyes bright with emotion. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine just how far beyond that promise you would go. Our moment of reflection is interrupted by another knock. Samantha, now general counsel for both the Mitchell Group and the Institute. "I apologize for the intrusion," she says, "but the governor is preparing to leave and specifically asked to speak with you before departing. Duty calls, as it always does." I squeeze Eleanor's hand gently before returning to the reception, moving smoothly back into my public role. The remainder of the evening passes in a blur of strategic conversations, media soundbites, and diplomatic relationship management. By the time I return to my Beacon Hill brownstone, it's well past midnight. As I prepare for bed, my security system alerts me to an overnight package delivery requiring authentication. The sender information shows it's from Phoenix, Arizona. Inside is a copy of Financial Ethics, Theory and Practice, with Nate's name listed as a contributing author. A note is tucked inside the cover. "Rebecca, 10 years ago today, justice was served. I deserved every consequence that followed. What I didn't deserve was the chance to rebuild something meaningful from the wreckage I created. I teach your methods now to ensure others don't follow my path. The Mitchell Institute dedication makes news even here in Arizona. What you've built is remarkable. Not a day passes that I don't recognize the full cost of underestimating you. Nate." I study the note without any particular emotional response. The man who wrote these words feels distant now, disconnected from my daily reality, a character from an early chapter in a story that has grown far beyond him. I place the book on a shelf in my study, where it joins the growing collection of financial governance texts that reference the Mitchell method and the revolution I sparked. Nate's contribution is merely a footnote in a field I now define. The following morning brings a call from the Treasury Secretary. The president is establishing a commission on trust fund governance reform and wants me to serve as chair. This would elevate these issues to the federal policy level, she explains. Your practical expertise combined with your academic framework makes you the obvious choice to lead this effort. After the call, I review the day's schedule with my chief of staff. The Mitchell Institute's opening has generated unprecedented interest in our certification programs, with applications increasing 300% overnight. Mid-morning brings my monthly meeting with the Mitchell Family Council, where I present updates on both the family's private holdings and the public-facing institute. Under my stewardship, the Mitchell fortune has grown nearly sevenfold, diversified across multiple sectors, and secured through protection systems that make it virtually impenetrable to fraud or manipulation. The European expansion is proceeding. Ahead of schedule, I inform the assembled family members, and the sustainable investment portfolio outperformed market benchmarks by 22% last quarter. George Mitchell, still serving as chairman emeritus, listens with evident pride. The renaissance of the Mitchell name and fortune stands as his final legacy, though we both know it's primarily my vision that brought it to fruition. Later that afternoon, while reviewing plans for the Institute's global expansion, Samantha brings me unexpected news. Vanessa Palmer has written a memoir, she informs me. Our sources indicate it attempts to reposition her as an unwitting pawn caught between you and Nate. I find this reframing almost amusing in its desperate attempt at relevance. Forward the manuscript to our publishing contacts. Let's understand exactly what we're dealing with before determining a response. By evening, the assessment has been completed. The memoir presents no actual threat, merely the self-serving rationalizations of someone seeking to monetize her peripheral role in a story that has far outgrown her. Her publisher is small. Distribution will be limited, Olivia reports during our evening briefing call. Initial print run is only 5,000 copies. Their publicity strategy relies entirely on generating controversy. Then we give them none, I decide. No response, no legal threats, no acknowledgement whatsoever. Complete. Silence is our most effective weapon against irrelevance seeking attention. The next day brings news that the Mitchell Institute's dedicated blockchain has successfully integrated with central banking systems in 12 countries, a technological achievement that will standardize trust fund verification protocols across major financial centers. The innovation, developed under Abigail's leadership with my strategic guidance, represents another milestone in our mission to make financial governance both rigorous and efficient. The Wall Street Journal is calling it the most significant advance in trust security this century, Olivia reports during our morning briefing, and applications for our governance certification program have doubled again overnight. I review the numbers with satisfaction. Each certified financial manager represents another safeguard against the kind of manipulation Nate once attempted, another family protected from betrayal through proper oversight. Evening finds me at a private dinner hosted by the Federal Reserve Chair, where discussion centers on integrating Mitchell governance standards into banking regulatory frameworks. The conversation represents another step in the institutionalization of approaches that began as my personal response to betrayal. What you've developed transcends private wealth management, comments the Fed chair. These principles have applications across the entire financial system. The fundamental vulnerabilities are consistent whether we're discussing family trusts or corporate governance, I reply. Concentrated control without appropriate oversight creates inevitable risks. Before retiring that night, I review tomorrow's schedule, meetings with international regulators, a keynote address at the Financial Security Symposium, strategic planning for the Institute's first international satellite campus. My influence continues to expand, touching financial systems and protection protocols around the globe. As I drift toward sleep, I reflect on how completely the roles have reversed over these 10 years. Once I was the one underestimated and overlooked, my expertise hidden behind the mask of trophy wife. Now my methods and systems are studied at elite business schools, my protocols implemented by central banks, my insights shaping international financial policy, and Nate, once so confident in his superior financial acumen, now teaches ethics, classes using his own failures as cautionary examples. Vanessa, who once flaunted her position as his chosen companion, now scrambles for relevance through revisionist memoirs that few will read. The Mitchell name, which Nate nearly destroyed, has become synonymous with financial integrity and innovation. The fortune he attempted to plunder has multiplied sevenfold under my stewardship. The legacy he risked has been secured for generations through systems he could never have conceived. In the quiet darkness of my bedroom, I allow myself a moment of pure satisfaction, not vindictive pleasure in their diminished circumstances, but simple recognition of poetic justice thoroughly served. The underestimated wife transformed betrayal into empire, silence into authority, vulnerability into unassailable strength. Tomorrow brings another day of expanding the revolution that began with a single signature on papers designed to expose one man's arrogance. Another day of ensuring that what happened to me becomes increasingly impossible in a world governed by Mitchell protocols and verification systems. The quiet woman Nate dismissed as decorative has fundamentally transformed how global wealth is protected and managed. The financial expertise he never bothered to discover in his wife now shapes international monetary policy. The power he never saw coming has become a force that altered an entire industry. That, perhaps, is the most fitting justice of all. Not punishment, but transformation. Not revenge, but revolution. Not the small victory of personal vindication, but the enduring legacy of systemic change. And somewhere in a federal prison cell, Nate finally understands the most expensive lesson of his life. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one you should have feared the most. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.